Friends, we're talking about today the 13th gift in our series, and this gift is about care. C-A-R-E, care. And we're starting our story with the book of Exodus, the book of Shemot. And in the beginning of the story, we hear about the story of Moses. But before we get into that story, I want to relate a different one to you today. Kitty Genovza, in 1964, was a woman that lives in Kew Gardens in Queens. She made her way home at 3 o'clock in the morning when a guy named Mosley stabbed her in the back. And after he stabbed her in the back twice, she screamed, "Oh God, I got stabbed!" And people around from all the buildings heard her and saw her. And this Mosley came back and finished the job, raped her, stabbed her to death, and stole $49 from her wallet. 38 people watched her die and watched her distress, but no one lifted a finger. This phenomenon was later coined in a term called the bystander effect. And psychologists and sociologists tried to explain why didn't these 38 people help this poor woman. Some say because when many people see crime, they think that the crime is not as important. After all, why no one lifts a finger? So it must be not important. Other individuals say that responsibility is something that if you see the other individual doing or not doing, you don't know. And you always think, oh, someone else is going to take care of it. And therefore you don't leap in, you don't jump in and take care of the situation. You shift responsibility to someone else because you think he's taking responsibility. And another theory is that there's a concept called the spread of responsibility. When there's a crime that's committed, many people around, each one looks at it from a different angle, and the responsibility automatically is dispersed to many individuals. Therefore, no one takes full responsibility in the situation, and that causes that no one is going to lift a finger and help that poor woman. How different is that case from one man, Moses, who in this week's portion, Exodus, is relating a very interesting story. An Egyptian is hitting a Hebrew, and Moses sees this, and he looks to the right, he looks to the left, he wonders, he sees no one, and as the verse says, Vayar ken ish, he saw no one person that lifts a finger, and he hits the Egyptian, buries him in the sand, and saves the Hebrew. Later on, a few days later, he sees two Hebrews fighting. And he says, "Why are you hitting each other?" And the other one scolds Moses and says to him, "Are you going to kill me like you killed the Egyptian?" Moses knows now that his secret is out. He runs away. Now we understand that when the verse says that he looked to the right and to the left and saw no one, and he buried the Egyptian in the ground, does not mean that there was no one in sight. After all, how did those two Hebrews know about the whole story? We understand that when the verse says Ein Sham Ish, there is not a personality that's going to intervene and is going to take responsibility. There's no one that actually cares. And when there's no one that actually cares, Moses becomes that individual. And that's what separates him from everybody else. We understand that when there are no people around, you should step up to the plate and become that someone. There's another story in the book of Exodus, in the portion of Exodus. Moses flees to Egypt, and as he flees to Egypt, he sees a well, and they are gathering some women there that are going to give water to the flock, and the shepherds are bothering them. They don't let them give water to their sheep. And Moses intervenes. And as the verse tells us, Moses gets up, he rescues them, and he waters their flock. Now I'm puzzled. I understand about the Egyptian hating the Hebrew. He's a Hebrew, he intervenes. I understand about the two Hebrews. But this is foreigners in the land of Midian. What does Moses have to do with the people of Midian? Is Moses a meddler? Every situation that he sees, he just intervenes? He has nothing better to do? But we understand that Moses, in a situation of crisis, becomes a caring individual. And care is one of the biggest gifts that humanity can have in the time of peace or in the time of distress. But how can a person cultivate that care in him? How does he trigger that care towards other human beings? There's a fourth story in our portion. The burning bush. Moses wanders off as a shepherd, now working obviously for Jethro, who he married his daughter Tzipporah. Moses marries Tzipporah, he becomes a shepherd, and he wanders off, and all of a sudden, as the verse says to us specifically, he sees a burning bush, and the bush is not burning. And Moses say, I should sway from my way and go see this phenomenon. Why is the bush not burning? Why isn't it being consumed by fire? And God saw that Moses swayed from his path. Moses took a detour. Moses looked away from his normal path that he used to go in it every day. And that's what God saw. And then God reveals himself to Moses, and he says to him, Moses, I'm choosing you to be the leader of the Jewish people. Go down to Pharaoh and tell him, let my people go, etc., etc. What did God see in Moses? The verse tells us specifically, in Hebrew, kisar liot, because he went out of his way to see something different. And the sages in the Midrash says, what does it mean that he went off the path to see something different? They dispute. One says he just turned his neck like this, looking. The other sage in the Talmud says, no, he took 3 steps towards that direction. Whether we say that he turns his neck, whether we say he stepped forward 3 steps, what is clear is that Moses deviated from his normal path, deviated from his normal way of dealing with this normal business, normal life, and took his time and curiosity to see something different. And that's where it all starts, with a little step, a little nudge of your face, your neck towards that direction, a little step, 3 steps, as the Talmud tells us. And with these 3 steps, Moses made a whole revolution. In 1969, man landed on the moon, and we know the great saying, small step for man, giant leap for the mankind. This is what Moses did here. With turning of his neck, he showed that he's deviating from his normal path because something there is bothering him. And when something is bothering you inside, it already triggers a whole notion of care towards that. All you need is just one little step, and you can create a revolution. All you need is moving towards another direction, and you can start something unique altogether. Rosa Parks, friends, was an individual like that. An individual that practiced care. In those days, in 1955, as you all know, blacks did not have any rights. And they could not sit in the front seat of a bus. Rosa Parks got onto that bus and made a huge step. It was a small one, sitting on a bench on the front row in a bus. But it was a huge step for mankind. Because with that tiny seat, what happened next was that she was arrested. What happened next was that Martin Luther King, with her, created the boycott in Montgomery on the bus company. And that created the changing of the law of the seating of blacks and whites in the bus. That changed the law regarding education. Blacks and children and white children learned in the same school, which eventually turned into the civil rights movement, black rights movement. And today we are where we are today, with full rights, and obviously the height of it, the black president. It started with a small step. It started with a small step that led to care. Other people started to care. Where were all the other blacks that did not sit in the front seat? They were brought down from Africa, worked in the cotton fields in Alabama. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of them. None of them turned right and turned left and saw that there was no one there. Only Rosa Parks. And when the place that there is no man, you become that man. Or in the place that there's no woman, you become that woman. And you make that small step. And that leads to care. And other people start to care. And then you start a revolution. So friends, the greatest gift that the Bible can give us in this week's portion is the concept of care and exactly how you achieve it for mankind with a small step that starts a giant leap for mankind.